Okay, so really, real big welcome to everybody who's joined the webinar. This is the next in our series of webinars, and this is about learning how to really kind of turbocharge, focus your efforts on sales, to just think about how to review everything that you're doing with your sales, because it's the sort of area that particularly people that have been in business a long time have a way of delivering sales, and it can always be improved. And the best salespeople, the best business people, the most successful are those that are always looking to challenge themselves, always looking to look at how they can review that. If you're watching this on playback, so welcome. We'll be running the session through. We'll have questions at the end, so we'll be asking everybody to stay on mute. And then what we'll do also is we'll be uploading this onto the YouTube site so that you can take a look at it as you see fit and as you want to. If you have any questions that you want answered, you can put them in the chat, and we'll also answer those at the end. So the webinar will be between 30 and 45 minutes, and is hopefully going to be really useful for you. Okay, so just starting to think about this. So sales, I think it is the most important part of any small business, particularly any micro business. And those businesses that put a big focus on sales, particularly in the economic climate that we're moving into, are going to be the ones that are going to either maintain their business or at least maximize the opportunity that's out there. And we are going into some really tough economic times. And I think that whether we are about to go into recession, or whether we're in recession at the moment, which I think that's what the indicators are from an economic perspective, what it means is that the inflation that we're seeing, the pressure on utility costs that everyone is seeing, and that is really visible, and the increased costs that are happening in terms of housing, in terms of food, that is going to have a big impact on the high street, and it's going to have an impact in two areas. So the first thing is it's going to increase your costs. And we had a session, a webinar recently, where we talked about how people's costs are going to increase, the impact of costs, and I think that is going to be a real challenge. The second thing, and the most important thing, is that your customers are going to have less money in their pockets. And if they have less money in their pockets, they're going to do two things. A, they're either not going to spend it, or alternatively, they're going to think really hard about where they spend it and where they put that money. And that's going to mean that they're either going to negotiate, or they're going to look for the best deals, or they're going to work any salesperson hard to make sure that they're spending on the right stuff. And that's a real challenge. And what it means is particularly for high street businesses, lots and lots of high street businesses don't actually really have a sales plan or a sales process. They just wait for people to come in, and they ask them what they want, and then they sell them what they want, and then away they go. We are not in those sorts of times now. The times we're in now is that those high street businesses that have a really clear sales plan, that have an approach which is going out and thinking about how they can bring customers into the store, but also how they can maximize the opportunity of A, making the customer spend money, and B, making the customer spend more money, upselling them. And those sorts of things are really important for high street businesses. And this is the sort of thing that we want to make sure that the businesses are thinking about. And some of the stuff that we're going to go through may seem really simple, it may seem basic, but actually this is the sort of sales training and the sort of principles that even the most senior sales guys that are selling huge kind of business to business type services, they will go through this again and again, because it is these basic principles that if you get them right, they can have a really big impact on your business. So therefore we want to see that working through. So the idea out of this will be that once you come to the end of the webinar, is that we'll have taken you through the idea of having a really clear sales pitch. And that's a sales pitch that you can weave into discussions with customers. So it's not about a real hard sell, but it's having a really nice structured approach about getting a customer to start talking about what it is that they want. What we'll also do is we'll understand a little bit about sales channels and how we can build different sales channels, how we can build up our customer database. And we'll also think about how we can be starting to think about managing things like objections when customers are coming in. And those objections are going to be real. People are going to be saying to you that I can't afford this, I don't have the money to spend that. And it's thinking about how you get around those so that you can offer the customer really good value and you can achieve sales even with those sorts of challenges. So that's really the sort of key plan. And I think what we do is we now move into what is probably the most important part of sales, which is the sales pitch. So the sales pitch is effectively a process to outline to the customer exactly what their problem is, and then to explain to the customer what the solution or the value that you offer is, and then to come in with something called a hook. And what the hook is to get the customer to the point where they are starting to engage in conversation. Once the customer starts to engage in conversation, then generally it's expected that they are around 50 to 60% more likely to engage in a sale than if you just have a brief hello and that's it. If they start to ask questions, or if they start to show buying signs, then in terms of that customer, they are starting to become much more likely. And a sales pitch is something that you or your staff can build into conversations to help your customers that are coming into your stores understand exactly what it is that you do and so forth. And you'll need to think carefully about this, particularly in retail stores with lots of products. Then you're going to need to be asking questions of customers so that you can then start to flex your pitch to make it relevant to the specific problem that a customer has. And thinking about from a health and beauty perspective, obviously people go into a health and beauty store for different types of products. So the start of any sales pitch, the sort of precursor to that will be understanding what particular area the customer is looking for, and then you can start to have this discussion with you. Sales pitch is not about a structured set sort of sentence or a set few words that you say every single time. It's just about having a structured way of thinking about how you're going to introduce your products to the customer, how you're going to really bang home the points of value that you've got, and whether that's that you've got low price, whether that's you've got specific products, whether that's you've got great service. You want to make sure that pretty early on your customers really understand exactly what you're all about. So the point of the pitch is it's effectively like growing a small plant. It's about starting off with that little seedling, and then very quickly starting to build on that with the conversation, that one-to-one conversation with your customers, so that you are then starting to talk to them about the opportunities out there, that you're then starting to talk to them about not just perhaps the product that they came in for, but also other complementary products, and you're starting to move into the process of upselling. And what's interesting is that at Smart Society, we work with a whole series of different high streets all across the UK. And what I think is one of the real resonating points is that when we go into a particular, either a cafe or a high street store, it's actually quite rare for the shop assistant or the assistants in there to actually say hello. It's even rarer for those people to get into conversation with us. And so the opportunity around that sales pitch, the opportunity around really building that rapport with the customer in general, across the high streets that we've seen, across the stores that we've worked with, apart from a few specifics, in general, we see that there's a really great opportunity to be able to do that. And building the sales pitch is the first step of doing that. So actually, people may not actually have heard the term sales pitch, or they may not think that the point of a sales pitch is relevant to a retail setting, but it absolutely is. Okay, the sales pitch is the most important part of it. The sales pitch is made up of three specific components, and so the first one is about outlining the problem. What is the problem that the customer has? Now, you may know this immediately, or you may have to ask some precursor questions to understand exactly what the customer is looking for. What's the issue that the customer has come into your store or your restaurant to be able to do that. And it's also so we talk about it being a problem, but it's really about understanding the customer requirements. So, for example, somebody going into a cafe on a local high street doesn't necessarily have a problem, but their needs are that they want to come in and have a coffee. Actually, what the cafe wants is something different. They don't want them to come in for a coffee. Actually, what they'd like them to come in for is a coffee with a load of upgrades on the coffee and a cake and something extra. So they need to be thinking that within the sales pitch that they want to be making sure that they are being very clear about the different options that they have available right at the start, and pushing forward the value that comes through for that. The second thing is about the unique solution. What is the solution that you've got? And that, I think, is one of the real principles of really good sales pitch. Because a sales pitch needs to outline really quickly exactly what you've got to offer, what is going to be really attractive to that customer. Because the thing is that what's attractive to one customer may not necessarily be as attractive to another customer. So you've got to have that flexibility in the structure of your sales pitch to be able to do that. And then the third component is called the hook. And the hook is about getting the customer into conversation. As I said, once you get a customer into conversation, then generally you're looking at between a 50 and 60% more higher chance of that customer actually buying something. So it's a really important thing to do. And if you were to make one change within your retail setting tomorrow, the first thing that you would do would be to get all of your team together and say to them that you are going to not only just say hello to every customer that comes in the door, but you're going to ask them what they want, and you're also going to just talk to them about some of the great products or some of the great services that you offer that are relevant to the customer needs that they have, to the problem that they have. So that's a really big change that you could make, and almost certainly it will have an impact on your sales. The next part of selling is called closing, and closing is that process of trying to get somebody to move from this idea of considering a purchase through to actually making a purchase. And so once you've got that process is called closing, and it's the kind of real principle of making sure that you are getting that right. So what does a sales pitch look like? Well, these are the three components that you're in there. And what I've put in here is one of my first businesses that I used to run, and so I wanted to just outline this so that you were clear about how you understand that. So one of my first businesses was a bouncy castle business called Elephant Bouncy Castle, and so when we are naming the problem, we've got to be really clear and doing that. So when I was setting up the bouncy castle for a party, there were other parents there. And so what I would say to them is, you want your kids to have the best birthday possible, but great birthdays are difficult to arrange and they're expensive. So that's the problem. And that's a problem that lots and lots of parents would understand, particularly when they're setting up parties. So what's the unique solution that I had? Well, Elephant Bouncy Castles offers birthday parties that kids rave about. We provide everything so that the kids enjoy the party safely and with a really big grin on their face. So actually, I'm not selling a bouncy castle. What I'm selling is happy kids. And thinking about the value that you provide is not necessarily about the product or service. It's about the outcome that really delights the customer. That is what you're selling. That is what you need to hammer home with the unique solution. So then it's about making sure that you are then getting the customer or the client into a conversation. And so the way I used to do that was, we get booked up months in advance. So I'd like to pencil you in, when is your son or daughter's birthday? And then we would get that, and then I would have a diary and pencil them in. So it's a very structured process. Did I ever go up to somebody and deliver it literally as it's written out on the slide? Absolutely not. This is about being in conversation with somebody and then just starting to just bring the elements of the sales pitch in as you start to go through the process. And that's the real knack with sales. And I think it's probably fair to say that across the sales process, it's estimated that to get a sales pitch really spot on, it takes you around 300 or 400 practices before you can actually really effectively bring it into different parts of the of a discussion with a customer. So if you imagine that you're in a health and beauty store, high street store, and if you went up to somebody and said, I can see that your hair looks really damaged. I'd like to show you, we've got this really good shampoo. Okay, immediately we all know that where that sort of sale is going to go through. That's going to fail. So ultimately, the way that you would do this would be starting off with some precursor questions. So welcoming somebody into the store, that means that they feel comfortable as you come in and so forth, and you can ask them about how they can help you. But the thing is that lots of people, when you say to them, how can I help you? They'll say, I'm fine, I don't need any help. So you then want to then follow that up with some other precursor questions, which would either be what sort of specific products are you looking for, or alternatively, have you seen our special offers over here? We've got a special offer that's on today, and start to get them into a conversation. Yeah, once they're in that conversation, you have a much more effective chance of selling to them. And then what you do is you then start to bring in the elements of the sales pitch as you're going through that discussion, to start thinking about how you can actually develop that customer and thinking about how you can explain to them the problem. So if they're talking to you about, say, for example, hair treatment products, then that's when you use your expertise and say, well, we've got actually a lot of really unique hair treatment products. What specific problem or what's the issue that you want to work on? And so then somebody say, well, I've got specifically, I've got some sort of damage to my hair. And so then that's the chance for you to go in and show the expertise and show the values that you offer by saying, well, we have lots of customers that come in with exactly the same issue. And what we recommend is this particular product or this particular service. The reason we offer this product is because of, it has these specific components or ingredients, and this is going to do exactly what you want it to do. And by the way, we're doing a special offer with this, but you also want to be thinking about this product because the two go really well together. And this means that it's going to give you some extra benefits. So, for example, it's going to make sure that your hair is protected for longer, and then you're starting to build the customer's confidence in you and the products. But you're also starting to make the customer think about how they can that they can actually increase the amount they buy. And I think that it's that process and it's that understanding around the sales pitch which will help you to really start to make it a really effective process. When you're doing a sales pitch, I think a sales pitch for the first time can actually feel quite awkward. And that's partly because it takes time to understand and you don't immediately recall it, and that's natural, and actually that's the same for many entrepreneurs. And my advice around this is actually to just keep going with it, because the more that you practice it, the better that it gets, and it will start to feel like a conversation. And I think what's interesting about it is that you can think about some of the kind of larger businesses or some of the smaller businesses out there. Every single one of them can structure what they do in a sales pitch, understanding the customer problem, delivering the customer solution, and then getting the customer into some form of conversation through the hook. And I think that's a really key part of it. So the sorts of examples that I would give. So let's think about a really large business. So let's think about auto glass. So auto glass windscreen repair. So what's the customer problem? Well, I've got a crack in the windscreen, or you've got a crack in the windscreen. That's very, very clear, okay? And it's nice and short. It's really clear in the customer's mind. So what the solution is that auto glass comes in, it fixes the crack to make sure that your windscreen then doesn't subsequently break. Most of the time it's free because you can get it on your insurance. We're a national company, so instead of you coming into a garage, we can come out to you, and it's just it's delivered by really, really skilled technicians. Okay, nice and short and sharp, hammering home lots of value, and then the hook would be something like, would you like us to do a free windscreen audit? Check out your windscreen and see if there's any cracks in there. That's the sort of process that you would go down, and I think that's how you would be thinking about your pitch. Thinking about it from maybe a local high street retailer's perspective, well, then let's take a high street butcher. So a high street butcher. So what's the problem? Well, a customer wants good quality, well priced meat for their family. That's the customer need, or the customer requirement, or the problem. So what you then talk about as the butcher is to say, well, we supply some of the best products available on this high street. The animals or the meat that we get from comes from all of these different sources, and you can talk about the provenance of the products. We have specific ways of cutting and preparing the meat, and we develop it into some really unique dishes, and we help you with the cooking instructions around it. And also the pricing that we give, we feel is very, very reasonable compared to other butchers or other food shops in the local area. And we also have some form of loyalty scheme. So you're then just, again, it's just banging home 3 or 4 of those value elements of the service, and just making sure that's going to deliver for something to the customer. Because as soon as they're starting to think through, you're reinforcing the values in there, and then the hook would be, when are you cooking your next meal for your family? And then immediately the customer has to respond to that. And then you start to get the customer into discussion. You can start to talk to them about certain products, and that's how you can really build up this particular service. So you've got your sales pitch. You've structured out your sales pitch, and so once you've structured your sales pitch, it is about practicing. It's about rolling it out to all of your staff. But I think one of the things that is really important, particularly for new customers, is moving on and finding yourself a killer deal. And a killer deal is a really important part of the process of bringing new customers into your store, into your business. New customers, the reason that they don't come into your business in general is to do with their perception of risk. And what that means is that in general, people have set ways of doing things. They buy from the same place. They go to the same restaurants and bars. They go on the same transport. They have the same friends. They are creatures of habit, and that's just how people are. Trying something new adds risk in. So we've all been in the situation, or certainly I've been in the situation, where you go into a news agent, and there's a whole series of different chocolate bars there. And I know exactly the chocolate bar that I like. I know the one that I'm going to really enjoy. So therefore, for me to go and select something different, then that would represent a risk, because I might not enjoy it as much as the Cadbury's Crunchy that I know is going to be amazing. So one of the things that chocolate bar manufacturers do to encourage people to try different chocolate bars is to put marked prices actually on the chocolate bar, and so that will then encourage people to see that there's a real kind of value-based offering, a killer deal, and so that they will see that there is a cost benefit in doing that, and so therefore that they'll go into and actually go for that. The killer deal, some of the principles of the killer deal that are really important are making sure that the killer deal is actually a really good deal. And making sure that a killer deal is a really good deal is something that is understanding what people think is a good deal and what people think is just an everyday discount that they see everywhere. So up until probably 20 years ago, people probably would have seen a discount of 5, 10 or 15% and thought that represented a really, really good deal to them. But fast forward now, and 5, 10%, that just doesn't cut the mustard, because we're facing a tidal wave of discounts and of promotions which are just out there and are just so enticing that actually that we've become desensitized to some of the smaller discounts. So if you imagine going into a supermarket, buy one get one free is regularly in there, a third off, so 33% off. I remember going into supermarkets when I was a bit younger and seeing buy one get two free. You know, so you can understand exactly why people are not in a position so that 10% or 15% doesn't resonate with them. The other thing about killer deals is particularly if you are a high street retailer, you want to try and get people not just to come into your store, but to come back. So therefore, what you want to make sure about is with your killer deal is that it's so enticing that it not only gets people to come into the store, but it also gets people to give you their contact details. And if you're taking their contact details, then that is gold dust, because what it means is that you can communicate with them. You can communicate with them either by email or by SMS or by WhatsApp. You can actually send out promotions to them and encourage them to come back into the store. And the reason that that's important is because it's much easier to get somebody to come back to your store than actually to find a new customer. It's the reason why Tesco's, Sainsbury's, all the big supermarkets have these loyalty cards. Those loyalty cards that you're going in to collect the points, they are basically encouraging you to come back to that particular store. Okay, and that's it. You know, so it's just bringing you in there. A killer deal doesn't necessarily need to be a discount. So if you're thinking about, if you're a high street cafe and you're trying to entice customers into your store, then actually you can do a very simple killer deal, which is to cut up maybe some cakes that you've got that are perhaps coming towards the end of their sell-by date. You can cut them up into small bits and you can hand out some free samples. Okay, that cake perhaps was going to go to waste, so you can cut it up, offer some free samples, then encourage somebody to come in, maybe give them a discount on a coffee, but to do that they have to sign up to the loyalty scheme. Okay, and you then take their details, you take their number, you take their email address. Once you've got that, then that's a really important thing to do. So the sorts of things that if you're looking for kind of other killer deals, if you're a high street, then think about something that you can offer which is free of charge. So for example, if you're a local bike store, then what you can do is you can offer a free evaluation of a person's bike. Yeah, talk them through exactly what's wrong with the bike, what they need to look at, what maintenance that needs to happen on it, and you can maybe give them sort of a free oiling or a free chain repair or something like that. And then as you're starting to get into discussion with the person whilst you're looking at their bike in your store, you can then start to sell to them. You can then start to say, well, it looks like the bike hasn't had any maintenance for a while. Why don't we book it in for a service next week? We've got a space here, and then you can start to put the customer in. Now, it's those sorts of things. It's thinking about how you can develop that free service, that free principle, without causing yourself any sorts of costs. And you need to make sure that a killer deal isn't going to start to hammer you in terms of costs. it's got to be pretty cheap to deliver. It's got to be something that's easy. It's got to be attractive to the customer, and then it's got to be set up so that you're capturing their contact details. Those are the essence. Those are the real essence of the killer deal. So once you've got your customer in, and you're starting to talk about the product or service that you're offering, you're then going to start to get into the issue of dealing with the principle of closing. And the principle of closing is very simple. It's basically about asking for their money. And it's something that I think, certainly in the UK, I don't think that we are particularly good at doing. I think that we can sometimes feel embarrassed about asking for money, when actually we want to close that sale. We want to make sure that those people are going to buy from us. Closing is a real art, because a good salesperson, and we've all met a good salesperson, whether we've been going out to buy a product or service, or whether somebody has come to our house for looking at quoting for some sort of maintenance or installation of something. It's those salespeople that start closing before you've even realized that you're actually buying something from them. And that is the way, that's the nature of a really top class salesperson. So it's the final part of the pitch, and it's about asking them and saying to them. So what you want to be thinking about very quickly is trying to think to get commitment. And once you've brought somebody in with your killer deal, you want to then start the closing process almost immediately, because that closing process is important. That once a customer has been engaging with you for maybe more than 1 to 2 minutes, unless they're asking questions of you, if you're not closing, they're going to lose interest and they're going to leave. And that, I think, is the key thing, is that you've got a fairly short time period. In terms of the pitch, you should be getting through the pitch generally within about 30 to 35 seconds. And then within the closing, you should be closing your customer in a retail environment within around 60 seconds. That is the point at which you want to be closing. Less, of course, if the customer's asking you questions, then that's good engagement, that's building rapport, but you want to make sure that as soon as possible, you're starting to close. So the first thing that you want to be doing is to actually ask the customer to make the purchase and say, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to, you want them to buy something. And you can just be very overt about it and say to them, right, this is the product or service, this is how much it costs, so if you want to pay by credit card or cash. And that you can just go through that and make it very natural, almost just assume that it's going to happen. There are other ways of closing, and they will generally be based around either booking some sort of specified date. So, for example, if you're the bike shop, you might say, well, we've got a date in a week's time with a free space. I'm going to book you in there. And so you've immediately closed that, and the customer, in many cases, will just say, yep, that's fine. Yep. Alternatively, they might not, and we'll deal with that in a second, which is the principle of objections. But you're using that kind of time-based closing process to put pressure onto the customer to get them into the principle of selling. What you can also do is you can actually put out a series of options. You can use what's called an options close, and you can say, okay, so they've actually got 3 dates. We've got date 1, date 2, date 3 for your bicycle maintenance. Am I okay? Are you happy if I book you into date 1? And then the person's then is already starting to think, well, am I available then, or should it be this? And they're starting to go through the buying process. And then the other thing that you might want to do is the urgency close. And I think that this is a key thing, because when somebody is thinking about a particular product or service, what you can say to them is, look, we've got this last space available, but we don't have much availability because we're fully booked, and for another 2 weeks. So I'd really like to get you booked in here to make sure that we guarantee the space that you've got. So that's a really great way of just making sure that you've got this sort of close in place. Now, once you start closing, then what you'll find is that some customers just say, yeah, I'm happy with that, and they go ahead with the sale. They're the dream customers, but they don't represent the majority. In fact, the majority of customers will put in place what are called objections, okay? And the objections, you need to have a strategy in place for each of the objections that will come up, so that when you're talking to the customer in a very natural way, you're able to deal with a particular objection and just manage it through, and then continue the closing process. And it's those salespeople that can really naturally deal with that are the ones that will kind of have more chance of the customer not walking out the door because they don't want to, and actually going ahead with the sale. People talk a lot about budget and price and so forth, but actually in general, when somebody's going into a store, whilst budget may be a factor, it's not generally the main reason why they don't want to go ahead. So generally they don't want to go ahead because it's around this idea of decision making. Most people, and perhaps unless you're going into a car garage, so you talk about a very, very big purchase. If you're talking about going into a cafe or a high street store, then in general, somebody is going in, is certainly thinking about making a purchase. So therefore, budget and price, whilst it's important, it's not necessarily the sort of critical objection. So just looking down the key objections and thinking about the sort of key elements to it. Well, budget and price are going to be important, and we know that they're important, and we know that they're going to be more important because obviously we've got all of this disastrous economic news that's coming through, showing that we are in recession. So we do need to be thinking about budget and price. What we can do with the budget and price is we can consider having some really, really great deals in store, which we can direct people to, and we can make people feel that they are getting really, really good value for shopping in your store. Any sort of product provider should have at least 2 or 3 really, really high quality deals available, so that they can direct people to that, to say, look, we've got these on special offer. You know, it's one of those products that when it's gone, it's gone. And you will have all of the deals with suppliers. You'll also be able to ask suppliers that, have you got a particular product that we can buy some of, that we can do a really good deal on, and we can offer that to our customers. Those sorts of products are really great because you can do 2 things with them. Firstly, it hammers home the value that you offer, particularly to those people that are objecting about budget and price. But what it also does is it gives you a really nice opportunity to upsell somebody, so that when they go to pay for all of their products, they go to the cashier, you can make sure that there's an opportunity to upsell them with that. And if you want to see a really, really good example of that, go into a WH Smith, and there's obviously lots of WH Smith around the UK. Go into a WH Smith and just watch what happens at the cashier. And every single person that goes to a cashier in WH Smith is offered, firstly, some sort of voucher, and secondly, a packet of sweets at £1 or £1.50. And it is one of the most successful upselling processes that's ever happened, because the number of people that actually buy something from WH Smith is actually surprisingly high. So I think it's something like 40% of their customers will engage with these deals. So they get a voucher, WH Smith get paid for handing those vouchers out, and they also get this additional products. And so they're seeing their average sale price increasing, and you can do that too. And it's a really important part of sales. So the second thing is when somebody says, well, not talking to the decision maker. Okay, so this is a pretty important one, because if this is not the actual decision maker, this is not the person that's got the money, then actually, the chance of you being able to make a sale to them is actually pretty slim. So it's about understanding who the decision maker is. It's generally more relevant to business where you are selling to businesses as opposed to consumers, in terms of thinking about that. Well, so in terms of the need, saying, well, actually, I don't need that, then that's really about trying to understand early on exactly what the customer need is, and that can actually be quite difficult to do, and it takes practice and it takes time, but it's really just about asking the customer questions and getting them to talk to you about the things that they need, the requirements, because I think once you start to understand that, you can then start to focus in on the relevant product or service. So lots of people that come in, oh well, I don't need anything, I don't need any help at all. Actually, if they've gone into your store, into a hair and beauty store, or into a cafe, it's clear that they want something. You just need to find out what it is, and once you found out what it is, you can then show them to the products or services that's going to be most relevant to them, and you can also think about how you can be upselling them. Okay, thinking about timing. So I don't have any time at all. You know, I'm rushing around. I'm actually going to have to leave. So make sure that you get their contact details. Get their contact details, and you can then contact them, and you can actually say to them, look, I'm sorry that you had to leave. Just to let you know, if you want to come back in, let me know, and I'll be there, and I can help you out. Or not understanding what you're actually offering or selling. Actually, that's something that may feel like a bit of a kick in the teeth, because you think you're trying to explain it and this person just doesn't understand it. Well, don't worry about that, because customers will think in different ways, and so the way that you're explaining it might not necessarily resonate with them. It might not be clear to them. So you just need to be patient. Think about how you can explain it in a different way. Think about how you can really clearly drive that value through and help them to understand, and then you can get in there. And then a poor experience. And lots of people, have poor experiences every day. I think that customer service process, that approach to customer service, it's probably one of the things that you could do that could actually really help your store to have a really good quality experience for its customers. And I think poor experience generally is to do with either people not being greeted, not saying hello, not actually understanding what they want. Maybe the product or service that they bought last time didn't actually fulfill what they were looking for. Maybe they bought, we've all been into a food store and bought something and got it home and opened it and it's actually moldy. Maybe that's happened. And so if they've come back in, if they've explained this, if somebody has had a poor experience, talk to them about it. And you've got an opportunity to really make a difference to a customer by understanding that and just helping to work that through and getting them to just reinforce that. In general, customers that come to you with faulty products, okay, some of them may not necessarily be telling the truth, but I think in general, customers are telling the truth, and so therefore you need to consider that. Obviously, you'll know the products and you'll know what is faulty and what actually has been messed around with, and you'll know the difference around that. But I think it's always good to give customers the benefit of the doubt, because actually you can turn what could be a relationship where you'll never see that customer again into a really strong relationship. And if you think about really any relationships, actually those relationships where somebody tries really hard to resolve a problem, you trust that person, that even when things are going badly, they will not stop until it's sorted out. And I think the same is true of businesses, whether it's a restaurant, a cafe, a motor parts retailer, a cycle shop. It's in my opinion, it's exactly the same. Okay, so once you've got all of the principles of your objections, you have outlined the real key core steps of your sales process. So the first thing is your sales pitch, understanding how you're going to engage the customer, then moving into the closing process, and then dealing with the objections. And we've gone through all of the steps in terms of that, and outline how you can do that within a high street location. Okay, and thinking about how to do that. So the next principle is to just think in general about how you want your staff to actually approach sales, and thinking about the actual principles around it. this is what we call the heart of selling, and I think that it's less about what you say, and it's about how you say it and how you deliver it to the customer, how you build that rapport, how you make that customer feels really, really special. So be genuine, and just come at this from the point of view that that customer has come in with a need and you're there to help them. In general, if you're genuine, people will engage with you and they will be much more likely to buy from you and to also be upsold to. Be warm and friendly. I think that's a principle. Just imagine going into a restaurant and somebody doesn't even greet you. They're not interested. They're too busy to engage with you. You already have had a bad experience and you are already unhappy. So it's really important to get that principle there. Then things like showing interest in them. Make sure that it's genuine interest. Make sure that if you're giving compliments that they're genuine. But just be talking to the customer and understanding them. It doesn't need to take a long time, and it doesn't need to necessarily get you away from the till. But it shows to the customer that you're really interested in actually what their issue is. Really interested in what they really want to do. And then just calibrating the rapport to just right. So the reality is are you going to be able to have a deep and meaningful conversation with every single customer? Well, probably not. So that's something that you need to just be thinking about. And when you're working with your staff, just helping them to think about that, recognizing the fact that there are some customers that don't want any help at all. But it's asking those questions. And it's making sure that you seem interested and that you're showing some real genuine warmth. That's the chance where you'll maximize the opportunity with those customers that do want to have a discussion. Okay, so if somebody says to you, I really don't want anyone to talk to me, that's absolutely fine. You say, yeah, no problem, we're here, just let us know if you need anything. But by asking those quick questions at the start, you can determine whether or not somebody actually wants to have a discussion with you, and then you can start to then build on that discussion. So we've kind of reached the end of the kind of principles of the sales process and understanding that. What we then want to be thinking about is starting to think about some of the different ways in which you're going to engage and manage with your customers, and that's when we start to move from sales through to the different areas of things like marketing and the principles of how you structure your store. So I think we want to, at this point, say, when you are working and developing your team and doing your sales pitch, you're always thinking through the eye of the customer and thinking about how the customer is perceiving you, thinking about how the customer is really sort of how they are enjoying or not enjoying your service. So alongside the sales process, you want to be thinking also about probably three key areas. So the first one is thinking about the environment that they're in. So if you're giving a really passionate sales pitch, but there's just that your store is not structured, it's messy, that it's clear that it hasn't been cleaned, then actually you can do as much of a sales pitch as you like. That is something that you are gonna really struggle to sell to somebody. So you want to make sure that the environment that you're selling actually has a very similar, it resonates exactly the sort of warmth and interest that you're showing. You want to make sure that somebody, when they come in, feels that the environment is looked after, is well structured. Because if they feel that the environment is looked after, they're going to feel that as a customer they're looked after. It's not about making sure that the store that you need to spend lots of money on it, but it is about keeping it tidy, and it is about keeping it so that when customers come in, that it's well structured and you've got all of your POS in the right places. The second thing is about how you manage the customer contact details that you've got. How do you manage customer contact details? Generally, what you would do is you would use something called a CRM, which is a customer relationship management system. And you can get lots of these. These are really simple systems, or there are very simple systems ranging all the way up to very, very complicated systems. In fact, actually, you can just use it for free. So you can use something called Google Sheets, and you can then put customer details in there with their name and number. You need to get permission that they can contact you, and so that's something around the principles of GDPR. But once you've got that permission, what it means is that you can then, alongside your sales, is that you can contact that customer when they've left your store. So once they've left your store, in general, if you do not have those contact details, around about 80% of new customers will just not come, or 80% of customers will just not come back. And the reason is because there are other services out there that they don't come back. If you're contacting them, the retention rate that you've got of those customers is much, much higher. So, and then the third thing is to be thinking about how you build up that loyalty with those customers. Okay, how you build up that rapport, how you make those customers feel special. The really, really good salespeople, when customers are coming back in, they remember those customers. Yeah, they remember something about them. They'll be thinking about them. They perhaps might remember how they like their coffee, or they might remember, their name, or they might remember something about their family. That makes a massive difference. And the thing is that when you've built a relationship up with somebody like that, and you ask them, how's your family doing? How are you? Yeah, that's also the point at which you say, have you seen this special offer that we're running? We've got these really, really great products in place, and so you can go in and get that. So that's the kind of key things, and they are the elements in which you can really start to improve how you sell and how the people that are running your business is selling. So just to recap, so going through the sales process, we went through some really simple principles. But I think that thinking about the experience that I've had walking into lots and lots of high streets, and lots of high streets that we work with, the vast majority of people in the stores don't actually go through this process. So if you're doing this, then you will naturally differentiate yourself from all of the other businesses on the high street. Have that sales pitch, structure and understand the customer needs, and help your team to actually understand how they can build that sales pitch into their initial discussions with customers. Asking a few precursor questions, getting the customer to talk, and then starting to talk about the products and services that you've got that will offer value to the customer. Once you've done that, have some plans around how your guys are going to be closing the customer to get the sale. And encourage them and think about how you can do that. In fact, one of the most valuable things that you can do with your staff is to run really simple sales training. And if you're the owner of a business, then in general, you will have a really, really good approach to sales because you've been doing it for so long. You will naturally be able to sell. And so helping them and developing them to speak with customers, to understand what they should be doing, how they should be greeting customers, how they should be asking questions, how they should be trying to close them for products is really key, and building in the killer deal and making sure that killer deal is something that is going to be really attractive is also a really important thing. Obviously, whenever you're closing, you're going to get the objections coming in, and managing those objections, again, it's just part of the sales training. And then I think once you've started to master this process, then understanding the principles of how you take their contact details, and also how you kind of look after them, and how you actually communicate with them once they've left the store. Those three principles are really key to do that. So we've reached the end of this webinar. So I'd like to say, big thank you for attending. What we'll do is once we finish the recording, we'll open up for any questions. Anyone that is watching the webinar on playback, you can submit any questions to us at hello@smartersociety.org, and we'll get back to you. But hopefully this webinar has been useful, and I'm really excited to hear anyone's stories about how they've implemented new sales and how it's impacted their business. But a big thank you from us, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next webinar.